How you doing there? Wait, I feel like my chair could be more secure. Okay, that seems fine. How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we study Daf Zayin, Daf 7 of Masechta Nazir, friends. Friends, today we talk about Nazirs. Let's start on Daf Zayin Amud Aleph, 4 lines into the page. Hamareni Nazir Achas Gedola. Hamareni Nazir Achas Ketana. He says, I'm gonna do one, what should we call it? One experience, one Nazir experience. I'm signing up for one large Nazir experience, or I'm signing up for one small Nazir experience. Afilu mikan ba'ad sofa olam, even from here until the end of the world. Nazir shloshim yom. He's a Nazir for 30 days. So the point in the first part is that it says, right, Nazir achas. Essentially, he's signing up for one experience, a big experience, a small experience. I don't know what that means, but he's signing up for one experience. What's the default experience of a Nazir? As we learned, was it yesterday, the day before? I guess the day before. That Stam Nazir is Lamed Yom, right? That Stam Nazir is 30 days, so he's a Nazir for 30 days. And then the interesting thing is that he says, even from here until the end of the world, it's still 30 days. Amai, Frekti Gemara, but why? V'mikan v'ad sof olam ka'amar. From here till the end of the world seems like a lot more than 30 days. This is what he's saying. That this Nazir experience, I'm so nervous about this Nazir experience that it feels like it's going to be as long as if it were from here until the end of the world. But he's talking about one Nazir experience, and his anxiety towards that Nazir experience. But really, it's one Nazir experience, which is a default 30 days. Tanan Areni Nazir Mikan Ad Mokum Ploni. Now, the Gemara points out that there's a mission that we're going to learn tomorrow, that if a fellow says that I am going to be a Nazirite from here until a certain place, Omdim, so we evaluate, Kama Yom Mikan Vad Mokum Ploni. So how long does it take to travel to such and such a place? Pachas mishloshim yom. If it takes less than 30 days to get there, well then, Nazir shloshim yom, then it'll be a Nazir for, the minimum, which is 30 days, right? So let's say, they used to not have airplanes. They used to not have airplanes. By the time I was born, I think they already had airplanes. Yeah, they must have had airplanes already in 1987. So, apparently there was once a time when they didn't have airplanes and they would have to walk, and it would take some time to get places. So if a fellow says that he's going to be a Nazir for the amount of time that it takes to get from here to there, so it depends. If it's less than 30 days, you can't be a Nazir for less than 30 days, so we give you the minimum experience of 30 days. And if it's more than 30 days, Nazir Communion Ayomim, so he's a Nazir for however many days the trip will take. If it'll take 40 days, then he's a Nazir for 40 days, whatever it might be. Why don't we say the Zelbazach? That's the first time I think I used it. I looked it up the other day. Because a different thing is an anderazach. So what's the same thing? I think it's a zelbazach. It's kind of funny. I guess when you're not funny, anything's funny. So I guess this is funny. To me, at least. So my apologies if I'm a das yochid over here. I'll go upon him. So why don't we say over here the zelbazach? Why don't we say that just like so in our Mishnah we said that if he says from here till the end of the world, really he's just referring to one Nazir experience, and he's just expressing his anxiety over the fact that it seems like it's as if it was from here till the end of the world. We have a Mishnah that we're going to learn tomorrow. In the Mishnah it says that if a fellow says that he's a Nazir for the amount of time that it takes to get to a certain place, so he's basically a Nazir for however many days it would take to get to that place. But why don't we say no, he's a Nazir for 30 days? Meaning, the Mishnah says that if it takes 40 days, let's say, to get to that place, then it'll be a Nazir for 40 days. But why don't we just say no, he's a Nazir for 30 days, and what he's saying is that he's feeling as though this Nazir experience of 30 days will be even longer. It will feel like the amount of time that it would take to get to a certain place, which is even more than 30 days. So why don't we say the same thing, Darton? But instead we say that no, it'll be a Nazir for X amount of days, 40 days, 50 days, 60 days, 70 days, however long it would take to get there. But why don't we just say that it's just an expression of anxiety, but really it's just a 30-day experience? Amar Rave, says Rave, shehechzik baderech. So Rave says, well, in that Mishnah, it's talking about that he's already traveling. So what he's basically saying is that he's going to be a Nazir for the duration of the trip. And that's what he's saying. He's already traveling to whatever place it is. And he's saying, I'm going to be a Nazir from where we are now, from the current location, until we get to that place. So therefore, it's not talking about a 30-day Nazir, so it's talking about however long it takes to get there. Fine. V'lavi kol parsa ufarsa. But for the Gemara, why don't we say, let's say, meaning we're saying that, let's say it's a 40-day journey, so it'll be a Nazir for 40 days. But for the Gemara, why don't we say that each mile that he goes, or each parsa that he goes, whatever, it's a measure of distance. So each parsa should actually be an individual experience, an individual 30-day experience. If it's a 100 parsa journey, then he should have to be a Nazir. He should have to experience 100 Nazir experiences. 100 30-day Nazir experiences. Every 30 days he gets a haircut, brings korbanos, starts over. Times 100. So that's 3,000 days. It's like 10 years or something, 8 years. So but why don't we say that each parsa is actually going to be a separate, an additional 30-day Nazir experience? Rav Papa gives a technical answer, which is, well, we're talking about a place where they don't actually measure distance in units of parsas. For that, we call avno ve'avno. Fine, so forget about parsas. Why don't we say that each nightly lodging will be a different 30-day Nazir experience. So therefore, if it's a 40-day trip, so he should have to do 40 Nazir experiences, not one experience of Nazirus that's 40 days. We're suggesting that maybe he should have to do a separate Nazir experience corresponding to each night that he traveled, that he lodged. So 40 times 30. Who could tell me that? What's 40 times 30? So what you do is 4 times 3 is 12, and then you add 1 0 for the 30, 1 0 for the 40, so it's 1200. Little math lesson. Milotnan, after all, don't we learn in the Mishnah? If a fellow says that he's a Nazirite like the dust of the land, or like the hairs on my head, or like the sand on the sea, of the beach, which is essentially an uncountable amount of stuff. Harezet Nazir Olam. So Mele is going to be a Nazir for the rest of his life. And he gets a haircut every 30 days. Meaning, if he's saying that he's going to be a Nazir like the hair on his head, he's basically saying that he's going to do a separate 30-day Nazir experience for each follicle, for each hair follicle. So Mimele is essentially going to be a Nazir for the rest of his life, but broken up into individual 30-day experiences, right? One experience per hair follicle, which will, 30 days times each follicle is definitely going to take you the rest of your life. But we're saying that it's a separate experience for each follicle. And therefore, every 30 days he can get a haircut, and he could, and he brings korbanos and stuff like that. So why don't we say the same thing over here as well? That each night should be, right, just like each follicle is a separate, just like each hair follicle is a separate 30-day Nazir experience. Let's say that each night of lodging is a separate 30-day Nazir experience, and it should have to be 40 times 30, assuming that it's a 40-day distance. And for the Gemara, that Mishnah was not talking about things that have a specific amount, right? Meaning this journey is going to be right, 40 days, right? That's a specific amount, as opposed to hair follicles on your head, or as opposed to sand on the beach, or dust on the land. I mean, that's generally, used as a way of saying infinite. So only in those cases of infinite situations do we say, okay, basically you're going to be, the rest of your life is going to be consisting of 30-day Nazir experiences. But if there is a fixed amount, so then we would not say that. So in our case, if it were to take 40 days to get to whatever place, so then it would just be a 40-day Nazirus, not 40 Nazir, not 40 30 Nazir day, not 40 30-day Nazir experiences. Okay. After all, we learn in a brayso, if a fellow says that he's going to be a Nazirite for the rest of his life, or that I'm an eternal Nazir, so he's a Nazir Olam, right? We learned about Nazir Olam the other day, that if hichbid sayru mekel b'sayr, if he gets COVID, if his hair becomes too heavy, so then he can get a haircut. So afilu mea shana, but then we say that if he says 100 years, afilu elef shanim ein ze Nazir Olam ela Nazir le'olam. However, if he says that he's going to be a Nazir for 100 years or 1,000 years, which essentially is going to be the rest of his life, obviously, but he is not a Nazir Olam. It's not going to be right. Meaning, right? Well, wait. What? I think what? Yeah. What I'm saying makes sense, but I'm not saying it in a way that makes sense. So let's back up 2 lines. But Tani, we learned it. If a fellow says that he's a Nazir for the rest of his life, Hari Nazir Olam, or he's a Nazir Olam, Hari is a Nazir Olam. So he says it's a Nazir Olam, and he can get haircuts, at different, if his hair becomes too heavy. However, afilu mea shana, afilu elef shanim, ein ze Nazir Olam, el Nazir li Olam. But if he says, however, if he says that he's going to be Nazir for 100 years or 1,000 years, then he's not a Nazir Olam that he can get haircuts every so often. He's a Nazir Li Olam, a Nazir Li Olam. He's basically a one, right? It's one Nazir experience that's going to be 100 years, right? So just like tying it back into what we're saying. If he's on a 40-day journey, which is something that has a specific number, right? 40 days. So then, if he says that he's a Nazir for the duration of that journey, so he's a Nazir for 40 days, as opposed to, right, we gave examples of something like the follicles of hair on your head, or the sand on the sea. These are things that don't have a particular counting to them. They're infinite, and there it's broken into 30-day Nazir experiences. But the distance that we said, which is like a finite amount, let's say 40 days, so then it would be one Nazirus for that duration. And we're proving from this brayso that also if he says that he's going to be a Nazir for 100 years, which is a specific amount, it'll last him the rest of his life, but it's a specific amount. So that will be one Nazirus for that entire amount, as opposed to, every 30 days, starting a new experience. So we see that when there is a finite amount, we say that we're not talking about separate experiences, we're talking about one Nazirus for the duration of that amount. Okay, fine. Rabba gives a different answer to explain how come when it comes to the travels, we're talking about, one Nazirus for the duration of the travels, as opposed to your hair, which is individual 30-day Nazir experiences. Shiny Cyrus, that your hair is different, because each follicle is a different, separate, unique, self-contained follicle. But 1 second. By the days of the trip, aren't those also separate, unique items? Right? Just like each follicle is a separate follicle, each day is a separate day. So why don't we say that each day represents a separate 30-day Nazir experience? So hasam lab demafsike me'adode hu. No, when it comes to the days, it's not that they are separate. My comment, what does that mean? Look, night and day constitutes one day, but they all kind of like flow into one another, right? There's no day becomes night. I wake up at 3 in the morning every day. So that's technically the middle of the night. I'll tell you, you look up from your Gemara, it's already light outside. So there's no big announcements or anything like that. So yeah, technically night and day creates one day, but it's still one sort of never-ending continual unit, as opposed to each follicle of hair on your head is a separate self-contained inyan. Rabba Amar says, Rabba, Lamalach Akshuye Kulehai. Rabba, going back to the initial question. What was our initial question? Our initial question was, how come in our Mishnah when he says that he's going to be a Nazir mikan vat sofa olam until the end of the world, he's only a Nazir for 30 days, and we say that it's as if he's saying that it's one 30-day experience that'll be as though, as significant as if it was from here to the end of the world, but it's really one 30-day experience. Yet, when it comes to traveling, if he says that he's going to be a Nazir from here till he gets to that place, we say not that it's a 30-day Nazir experience, but that it's a Nazir experience that will last as long as it takes for him to get there. So what's the difference? So says Rabbah, what are you getting so excited about? Shiny awesome, it's different in our Mishnah. He says, if you look at our Mishnah, right, what does it say? So Rabbah wants to explain that in our Mishnah, that part as well, Mikan Vat Shloshim Yom, is Hareini Nazir Achas, that I'm, doing one Nazir experience. And therefore, that is why it's going to be a 30-day experience and not anything longer than that. Now we get to a new Mishnah, Hareini Nazir V'Yom Echad. If a fellow says that he is a Nazir plus a day, one Nazir experience plus another day. Harini Nazir v'shah achas. He says one Nazir experience and another hour. Harini Nazir achas v'mechza. Right? He says that he's doing 1.5 Nazir experiences. Harini Nazir shtaim. In each case, he's going to be a Nazir for 2. Right? He's gonna have to experience 2 Nazir experiences. So if he says 1 Nazir experience and a day, he's gonna have to do 2 Nazir experiences. It says the Gemara, Lamali Limisna Kol Hani. Why do I need all 3 examples? Example number 1, I'm going to be a Nazir in a day. Example number 2, I'm going to be a Nazir in an hour. Example number 3, I'm going to be a Nazir in a half. So we need all 3. Because if it would only say that I'm going to be have 1 Nazir experience and a day, so over there we'll say, look, who's ever heard of a Nazir for a day? The minimum is 30 days. So tartin. Well, that's why Memele, he's going to have to be to have 2 Nazir experiences, right? He's saying I'm going to have 1 Nazir experience and a day. Sorry, buddy, there's a 30-day minimum. So 1 Nazir experience and another Nazir experience. So already Nazir v'shah achas. But if he says I'm going to be a 1 Nazir experience and an hour, limnei shloshim ve'echad yom. So I might think 31 days, as we're going to learn about in a second in the next Mishnah. So I might think that maybe if he says 1 Nazir experience in an hour plus an hour, maybe I'll just think, okay, 1 31-day Nazir experience. Kamaj Malon. Therefore, it says that no, they're oichet, that I'm a Nazir plus an hour, he's going to have 2 Nazir experiences. Vitana sha'achas, and if you only have that case of, Nazir experience plus 1 hour, mishum delo nochis ledavka, because he's not getting into specifics, although it seems pretty specific to me, but I guess it's less actionable, I guess. Aval achas v'mechta de nochis ledavka, meaning, but when he says that I'm going to be a Nazir in a half, so Ema lo limne tarte, so I might kamaj malon kulu Nazir shtaim. Right? I might think that, look, if he says he's going to be a Nazir, right, a Nazir experience and a half, so maybe what he's saying is that he's going to be a Nazir for 45 days. Right? A 30-day Nazir plus a half. Maybe what he's saying is going to be a Nazir for 45 days. Right, meaning in the first case, he says a Nazir in a day, a Nazir and an hour. But if you're saying a Nazir and a half, maybe he's saying a 45-day Nazirs. Kamash Malan, that in all of these cases, he's going to have 2 Nazir experiences. Says the Gemara, Hareini Nazir shloshim yom v'shah achas. if a fellow says that he's going to be a Nazir for 30 days plus an hour, so he doesn't say that he's going to have one Nazirus plus an hour. He says he's going to be a Nazir for 30 days plus an hour. Nazir shloshim ve'echad yom, so he's a Nazir for 31 days. She Nazirus shows, because you can't have Nazirus for only a few hours. You can't have Nazirus for 30 days and an hour. No, it's got to be 31 days, right? So you can be a Nazir for however long you want. You can be a Nazir for 50 days, whatever it is. But it can't be like partial days. So you can't say, 50 days in an hour. No, if you say 50 days in an hour, it'll be 51. So here the Mishnah is saying if you say 30 days in an hour, it's going to be 31 days. So now Rav points out, so what did we just say? So we just said, look, if you say 30 hours in 30 days in an hour, so it's 31 days. And certainly if you say that you're going to be a Nazir for 31 days, then you're a Nazir for 31 days. And Rav points out that Davka, you have to say, if you say that you're a Nazir for 31 days, so then you're a Nazir for 31 days. Aval Omer Shloshim Yom V'Yom Echad. But if he says 30 days and also another day, Nazir Shtayim. So he's not saying 31 days, but he's saying 30 days and a day. So he's saying he's going to be a Nazir, a 30-day Nazir, right? A minimum amount of Nazirus. And then, right, you can't just be a Nazir for a day. The minimum is 30 days, so then you're going to have to be a Nazir for an additional term. Fine. Rav Savarla, Rabbi Akiva, and Rav holds like Rabbi Akiva, the Darish Lishni Yisera, that Rabbi Akiva learns out from like extra things, right? Meaning, over here he's saying two things, right? He's saying he's going to be Nazir for 30 days, and additionally he's going to be a Nazir for a day. There's no such thing as a Nazir for a day. There's a minimum is 30, so we can learn out, okay, so clearly what's happening here is that it's two Naziruses, two 30-day Naziruses. Where do we see that Rabbi Akiva holds of these additional statements to be significant? The Tanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, lo esabor v'lo esadus, that if a fellow sells a property, he's excluded memele from the property is the pit and the cistern. Even though he wrote that I'm selling whatever is low and whatever is high, still the pit and the cistern are excluded. However, he would, meaning, so when he sells the property, so he sells it minus the pit and the cistern, but how's he going to access the pit and the cistern? Because he sold the property, which means that any, way of accessing the pit and the cistern, he doesn't own. So he would then have to buy back, an access route to the pit and the cistern. To Rabbi Akiva, that's Rabbi Akiva's opinion. The Chacham say no, he wouldn't have to buy back a path to the cistern, he would be able to just access it. Rabbi Akiva admits, but if he would say to the exclusion of these things, well then if he specifically adds that I'm selling you the house to the exclusion of the pit and the cistern, well in that case, by adding these additional things, then he wouldn't, right, this additional stipulation, then he wouldn't have to buy back access to the pit and the cistern. So we see that according to Rabbi Akiva, is Dorish Lishni Yiseret. When you add additional things, so then they have significance. And here also, when you say 30 days and a day, so that extra day is significant to say, well, you can't, what's this day? You can't have Naziris for a day. It has to be 30 days, so it must be 2 Nazirises. Friends, that was Daf Zayin, Daf 7 of Masechta Nazir. We talked about minimum terms of Nazirus being 30 days and different kind of ways to potentially extend that, and if you go over it, and how you have to have, you can't have Nazirus for less than a day. So if you say like 30 days in a day, so then Davka, it would be 2 Nazirus experiences. Peace out.